The night was quiet at the Global Space Observation Center. Dr. Sarah Lee yawned as she looked at the large screens showing different parts of space. It was her job to watch for anything unusual. Most nights, nothing happened. But this night was different. A small red dot appeared on one of the screens. At first, Sarah thought it was just a mistake. She rubbed her eyes and looked again. The dot was still there, and it was moving. "Hey, John, come look at this," Sarah called to her coworker. John walked over, holding a cup of coffee. He spilled some when he saw the screen. "What is that?" John asked, his eyes wide. Sarah typed quickly on her computer. "I don't know, but it's big, and it's moving fast, and it's coming towards us." They both knew what this meant. They had found something in space, something that wasn't supposed to be there. And it was heading to Earth. Sarah's hands shook as she picked up the phone. She had to call her boss, Dr. Miller. This was too big to ignore. Dr. Miller arrived at the center in just 30 minutes. His face was serious as he looked at the data. "We need to tell the president," he said. "This could be it. The day we've been preparing for." Within hours, the news spread. First to other scientists, then to world leaders, and finally to the public. The world woke up to shocking headlines. Alien fleet approaching Earth. People reacted in different ways. Some were scared and started buying lots of food and water. Others were excited and hoped to meet the aliens. Many didn't believe it was real. In New York, a young woman named Maria watched the news with her family. "Do you think they're friendly?" she asked her father. Her father shook his head. "I don't know, honey, but I hope our leaders know what to do." In a small town in China, an old man named Wei told his grandchildren stories about aliens he had heard when he was young. "Maybe now we'll know if they were true," he said with a smile. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., the president called an emergency meeting. Leaders from all over the world joined through video calls. They all looked worried. "We need a plan," the president said. "We can't just wait for them to arrive." The room was quiet. Nobody knew what to do. Then a woman stood up. It was Dr. Aria Chen, a famous scientist known for her work on space technology. "I have an idea," Dr. Chen said. All eyes turned to her. "We've been preparing for this day for years. We have technology that most people don't know about. Technology we got from previous encounters." The room buzzed with whispers. Dr. Chen continued, "I propose we build a space station. A big one. We'll call it Prometheus. It will be our first line of defense and our way to communicate with the aliens." The president leaned forward. "How long will it take to build?" Dr. Chen smiled. "With the whole world working together, we can do it before they get here." The meeting went on for hours. There were arguments and doubts. But in the end, they agreed to Dr. Chen's plan. It was their best hope. As the sun rose the next day, the world changed. Countries that were once enemies now worked together. Factories that made cars now made spaceship parts. Students and teachers left their classrooms to help in labs. Dr. Chen worked day and night. She knew the fate of humanity was in her hands. But she wasn't afraid. She was excited. "We've been waiting for this moment," she told her team. "It's time to show the universe what humans can do." As weeks passed, the alien fleet got closer, but Earth was getting ready. The space station, Prometheus, was taking shape in orbit. It was the biggest thing humans had ever built in space. People around the world watched the sky at night. They knew that somewhere up there, aliens were coming. But now, they also knew that humanity was ready. The day of first contact was getting closer. Earth was about to face its greatest challenge. But for the first time in history, the whole world was united, ready to face whatever came from the stars. And so, as Prometheus neared completion, humanity prepared to send its message to the stars. "We're ready and waiting." The world was buzzing with activity. Every country, big or small, was now part of something bigger, Project Prometheus. Dr. Area Chen's plan to build a massive space station was in full swing. In a large factory in Brazil, workers were making parts for the space station day and night. Maria, a young engineer, wiped sweat from her forehead as she checked a huge metal panel. "This will be part of the main hull," she told her coworker, Pablo. "Imagine, our work will be up there in space." Pablo nodded, his eyes shining with pride. "And it might be the first thing the aliens see when they arrive." Meanwhile, in a lab in Japan, Dr. Tanaka was working on something special. He held up a small device that glowed with a soft blue light. "This," he said to his team, "is based on the technology we found in the crashed alien ship 10 years ago. It's a universal translator. It will help us talk to the aliens." His assistant, Yuki, looked amazed. "So all those rumors about alien tech were true?" Dr. Tanaka nodded. "Yes, but now is not the time for secrets. We need every advantage we can get." In orbit around Earth, astronauts from different countries worked together to assemble Prometheus. It was like building a giant puzzle in space. Each piece had to fit perfectly. Commander Sarah Johnson floated inside the half-built station. She talked to Mission Control through her radio. "The living quarters are almost done," she reported. "We'll be ready for the full crew soon." Back on Earth, in a military base in Russia, soldiers were training for a different kind of war. Captain Alexei Volkov watched as his team practiced using new weapons. These guns didn't shoot bullets. They fired beams of energy. "Remember," Alexei told his team, "we hope for peace, but we must be ready for anything." In Africa, a young boy named Quames sat in his classroom. His teacher was explaining about Project Prometheus. "Our continent is providing many of the rare materials needed for the space station," she said. "We are all part of this global effort." Quames raised his hand. "Teacher, will the aliens be friendly?" The teacher smiled softly. "We don't know, Quames. But that's why we're getting ready, to show them that Earth is strong and united." As weeks passed, Prometheus grew bigger and more impressive. People could see it in the night sky, a new star that represented hope for humanity. Dr. Chen worked tirelessly, coordinating efforts from around the world. One day, as she was reviewing plans, her assistant ran in. "Dr. Chen, we've detected something strange about the alien fleet." Chen rushed to the control room. On the big screen, she saw that the alien ships had changed course. They were moving faster now, heading straight for Earth. "They've seen Prometheus," Chen realized. "They know we're ready for them." The news spread quickly. World leaders called for calm, but people were scared. What would the aliens do now? In New York, crowds gathered in Times Square, looking up at the big screens. In Beijing, families huddled around their TVs. In Lagos, people listened to radios in the streets. Everyone was waiting for news. Then, a message came from Prometheus. Commander Johnson's face appeared on screens worldwide. "People of Earth," she said, her voice strong and clear, "the alien fleet has increased speed, but we are ready. Prometheus is nearly complete. We have weapons to defend ourselves and technology to communicate. Whatever happens, we face it together." Her words brought comfort to millions. In homes, in offices, in streets around the world, people felt a mix of fear and pride. They were afraid of the unknown, but proud of what humanity had achieved. Back in her office, Dr. Chen looked at a photo of Earth taken from space. She thought about how small arguments between countries seemed now, how old enemies worked side by side on Prometheus, how the whole world had come together. "Maybe," she thought, "this is our real victory. No matter what the aliens do, we've already won by uniting." As night fell around the world, people looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, Prometheus waited, humanity's guardian in the stars. And beyond, the alien fleet approached. The moment of truth was coming. Earth had sent its message to the stars. "We're ready and waiting." Now, they would see how the aliens would respond. The world held its breath. Prometheus, the massive space station, was complete. Now came the next big step, sending a message to the approaching aliens. In a room deep inside the United Nations building in New York, a special team had gathered. There were scientists, language experts, diplomats, and even a few poets. Their job was to create the most important message in human history. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a famous linguist, stood at the front of the room. "We need to be clear," she said, "but also show our strength. We want peace, but we're not weak." Next to her, Ambassador Chen nodded. "We must show them our achievements, our culture, but also our weapons, our ability to defend ourselves." For days, they worked on the message. They argued, they compromised, they wrote and rewrote. Finally, they had something they all agreed on. Meanwhile, on Prometheus, the crew was getting ready. They had trained for months for this moment. Commander Sarah Johnson floated through the station, checking every system. "How's our broadcast equipment?" she asked her chief engineer. "All green, Commander," he replied. "We're ready to send the strongest signal ever made by humans." Back on Earth, in living rooms and public squares, people waited. TVs and phones were tuned to news channels. Everyone wanted to see the message that would be sent to the aliens. In a small town in India, a family gathered around their old TV. The grandmother, Priya, held her grandson's hand. "I never thought I'd see such a day," she said softly. In a cafe in Paris, friends sat silently, their coffee forgotten as they watched the news. One of them, Marie, whispered, "What if they don't understand? What if they attack?" Her friend Pierre squeezed her hand. "Then we'll face it together, all of us." Finally, the moment came. On screens around the world, the face of the UN Secretary-General appeared. "People of Earth," she said, her voice steady, "the time has come to send our message to the stars. May it carry with it the hopes and determination of all humanity." The camera switched to show Prometheus. A beam of light shot out from the station, racing towards the alien fleet. The message was on its way. On the screens, the message began to play. It started with simple math. 1 + 1 = 2, the Pythagorean theorem, prime numbers. This was to show that humans understood basic universal concepts. Then came images: the pyramids of Egypt, the Great Wall of China, modern cities, and green forests. It showed the diversity of Earth's cultures and the beauty of its nature. Next, the message showed human achievements: the moon landing, great works of art, breakthroughs in medicine. It was saying, "Look how far we've come." But then the tone changed. The message showed Earth's military might: armies, navies, and air forces. It showed advanced weapons and defensive systems. The meaning was clear: we can defend ourselves if we need to. The message ended with an invitation for peaceful contact, written in every major language on Earth. But it also carried a warning: we are ready for whatever you bring. As the message played, people around the world watched in awe. In New York, crowds in Times Square cheered. In Beijing, people stood silent, eyes glued to giant screens. In a small village in Africa, people listened on old radios, hanging on every word. On Prometheus, Commander Johnson watched the message being sent. "And now we wait," she said to her crew. Dr. Chen, watching from her office, felt a mix of pride and fear. They had done all they could. Now it was up to the aliens to respond. In homes around the world, families hugged each other. Friends called friends. Even strangers on the street nodded to each other, sharing a moment of unity. The message raced through space, carrying the hopes and fears of an entire planet. It would take days to reach the alien fleet, days of tense waiting for humanity. As night fell around the world, people looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, aliens were coming. And now, they would know. Earth was ready. Earth was waiting. And Earth was not afraid. The first move had been made. Now, the whole world wondered, how would the aliens respond? Days passed. The world waited. Every eye was on the sky. Every ear listening for news. Then, finally, it came. We've got a response. The shout echoed through the control room of Prometheus. Commander Sarah Johnson rushed to the main screen. "What does it say?" she asked, her heart racing. Her communications officer, Ligui, looked up with wide eyes. It's in English, Commander." They understood our message. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. The aliens had responded, and they wanted to talk. World leaders gathered for an emergency meeting. In homes and public spaces, people huddled around screens, waiting for updates. Dr. Aria Chen stood before the United Nations. "The aliens have agreed to meet us near Jupiter's orbit," she announced. "Prometheus will represent Earth in this historic encounter." As Prometheus prepared to leave Earth's orbit, the crew felt the weight of their responsibility. They were about to meet aliens for the first time in human history. Commander Johnson addressed her crew. "We've trained for this. We're ready. Remember, we represent all of humanity now." The journey to Jupiter took weeks. On Earth, life seemed to stand still. Schools held special classes about space and aliens. Churches, mosques, and temples were full of people praying for a peaceful outcome. In a small town in Brazil, Maria watched the news with her family. "Do you think they'll look like us, Papa?" she asked. Her father smiled. "Who knows, Minhafilla? The universe is full of surprises." Finally, Prometheus reached the meeting point. The alien fleet came into view. The ships were massive, sleek, and unlike anything humans had ever seen. "They're hailing us," Liwi reported, his voice shaking slightly. Commander Johnson took a deep breath. "On screen," she ordered. The main screen flickered to life. And there they were. The aliens. They looked strange, not quite like the movies had imagined. They had multiple eyes, skin that shimmed like oil on water, and no visible mouth. "Greetings, humans of Earth," a voice said. It sounded oddly melodic. "We are the Zarkonian Federation. We come in peace." Johnson felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Greetings, Zarkonians. We welcome you on behalf of Earth." The alien spoke again. "We received your message. It was interesting. You show great pride in your achievements, yet you also threaten us. Why?" Johnson chose her words carefully. "We are proud of how far we've come, but we've also learned to be cautious. We hope for friendship, but we're prepared for anything." The alien seemed to consider this. "Understandable. We have come to assess your species, to see if you are ready to join the galactic community." This was unexpected. The crew of Prometheus exchanged glances. They weren't facing an invasion. They were facing a test. "What kind of assessment?" Johnson asked. "A series of trials," the alien replied, "to test your intelligence, your morality, your unity. If you pass, you will be welcomed among the stars. If you fail, you will be left alone, deemed unready." Johnson felt the weight of Earth's future on her shoulders. "We accept your challenge," she said firmly. As the details of the trials were discussed, news of the encounter reached Earth. People reacted with a mix of excitement and fear. In New York, crowds cheered in the streets. In Beijing, scientists huddled in emergency meetings. In a village in Kenya, elders gathered to discuss what this meant for their people. Dr. Chen, watching from Earth, felt a glimmer of hope. "This is our chance," she told world leaders, "to prove ourselves, to show the universe what humanity is capable of." The first trial was set. Prometheus would face challenges that would test the very limits of human ability. The fate of Earth hung in the balance. As night fell around the world, people looked up at the stars with new eyes. Somewhere up there, humanity was about to be put to the test. But they weren't afraid. They were ready. The greatest adventure in human history was about to begin, and the whole world held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The first trial began. The Zarkonians presented Prometheus with a complex puzzle. It was a strange, shifting hologram that seemed to defy the laws of physics. "Solve this," the alien leader said, and you will prove your intelligence. Commander Sarah Johnson looked at her team. Dr. Chen, what do you think? Dr. Aria Chen studied the puzzle. Her mind raced. It's not just about intelligence, she said. It's about thinking differently. Thinking human. For hours, the team worked. They tried math, physics, even music theory. Nothing worked. Then, a young engineer named Raj had an idea. What if it's not about solving it? He said. What if it's about changing it? They tried Raj's idea. Instead of solving the puzzle, they changed it. They added to it, made it more complex. Suddenly, the hologram burst into a beautiful display of light and color. The aliens were shocked. Interesting. Their leader said, you didn't just solve it, you improved it. You passed the first trial. News of the success reached Earth. People cheered in the streets, but there was no time to celebrate. The second trial was about to begin. This time, the aliens presented a moral dilemma. They showed 2 planets, both in danger. You can only save one, they said. Choose. The crew of Prometheus was torn. How could they choose between 2 worlds? Dr. Chen thought hard. Then she had an idea. We choose to try and save both, she said. The aliens were confused. But that's not an option, they said. We make it an option, Commander Johnson replied firmly. We will find a way. The crew worked tirelessly. They came up with a plan to use Earth's entire satellite network to extend their reach. It was risky, but it might work. Back on Earth, people held their breath. Would the plan work? Would the aliens accept their choice? After tense hours of work, they did it. Both planets were saved. The aliens were amazed. You refused to accept an impossible choice, they said. You passed the second trial. The final trial was the hardest. The aliens said, show us your unity. Prove that your world can work together. This was tough. Earth had always been divided. How could they show unity now? Dr. Chen had an idea. She called Earth. We need everyone, she said. Every country, every person. We need to show them who we really are. What happened next was amazing. All around the world, people came together. They sang songs, shared stories, and helped each other. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. In New York, people from different countries danced in the streets. In Tokyo, chefs from around the world cooked together. In Cairo, children drew pictures of unity and peace. The aliens watched all of this. They saw the good and the bad. They saw people arguing, but also people making up. They saw the mess and the beauty of humanity. Finally, the alien leader spoke. We have seen enough, they said. You are not perfect. You argue, you make mistakes. But you also try. You never give up. You face impossible odds and you keep going. The crew of Prometheus held their breath. Had they passed? Humanity, the alien said, you have passed our trials. Not because you are perfect, but because you are perfectly human. Welcome to the galactic community. Cheers erupted on Prometheus. On Earth, people hugged and cried with joy. They had done it. They had proven themselves to the universe. As celebrations began, Dr. Chen looked out at the stars. She thought about how far they had come. From a species alone on a small planet to a part of something much bigger. This is just the beginning, she said to Commander Johnson. We have so much more to learn, so much more to explore. Johnson nodded, and we'll do it together. As one Earth united. As Prometheus prepared to return home, the crew knew that everything had changed. Earth was no longer alone in the universe. A new chapter in human history had begun, and it all started with a warning. We're ready and waiting. Now, they were ready for whatever the universe had in store. As Prometheus prepared to return to Earth, something unexpected happened. One of the junior scientists, Maya, noticed a strange pattern in the aliens' communication. Dr. Chen, Maya called out, her voice trembling with excitement. I think I've found something. Dr. Aria Chen rushed over. She looked at Maya's screen and her eyes widened. This can't be right, she muttered. But the more she looked, the more certain she became. Commander Sarah Johnson joined them. What is it? She asked. Dr. Chen took a deep breath. The aliens. They're not as advanced as we thought. The crew gathered around, shocked by the news. Dr. Chen explained her discovery. The alien technology, while impressive, was actually a mix of different alien races' inventions. The Zarkonians hadn't created most of it themselves. They're like collectors, Maya said. They gather technology from other races they meet. This changed everything. Humanity hadn't just passed a test. They had impressed a race that was used to seeing the best the galaxy had to offer. Commander Johnson made a bold decision. We need to talk to them again, she said. But this time, we negotiate. The Zarkonians were surprised when Prometheus hailed them. They were even more surprised by what the humans had to say. We know about your technology, Commander Johnson said. We know it's not all yours. The aliens were silent for a moment. Then their leader spoke. You are more observant than we expected. Yes, it's true. We collect knowledge and technology from across the galaxy. It's how we've survived. Dr. Chen stepped forward. We have something you don't, she said. Creativity. The ability to make new things, not just collect them. The aliens were intrigued. What are you proposing? They asked. A partnership, Commander Johnson said. We join your community, but as equals. We share our creativity. You share your knowledge. The Zarkonians huddled together, discussing in their own language. The crew of Prometheus waited nervously. Finally, the alien leader turned back to the screen. We accept, they said. You have shown us something new. Something exciting. As the details of the agreement were worked out, news of this incredible turn of events reached Earth. People were amazed. They had gone from fearing alien invasion to becoming partners with an advanced galactic civilization. In a small classroom in Kenya, a teacher explained to her students what this meant. We're not just joining the galaxy, she said. We're changing it. In a lab in Tokyo, scientists cheered. Think of what we can learn, one said, and what we can teach. Even in the farthest corners of the world, people felt the excitement. In a tiny village in the Amazon, an old shaman smiled at the sky. The stars are closer now, he said to his grandson. Back on Prometheus, the crew was busy preparing for their return to Earth. But now, they weren't just bringing back news of their success. They were bringing the promise of a whole new future. Dr. Chen looked out at the stars, her mind racing with possibilities. We did it, she said softly. We not only proved ourselves, we changed the game. Commander Johnson nodded. And we did it by being human. By thinking differently, by never giving up. As Prometheus began its journey home, the Zarkonian ships escorted them part of the way. It was a symbol of their new partnership. On Earth, preparations began for this new era. Schools started teaching about alien cultures. Scientists eagerly awaited the chance to study new technologies. World leaders discussed how to represent Earth in galactic politics. But amidst all the excitement, Dr. Chen reminded everyone of an important truth. We're entering a bigger universe, she said in a global broadcast. But we must never forget what makes us special. Our creativity, our determination, our humanity. That's what got us here. And that's what will take us further than we ever dreamed. As Prometheus neared Earth, the crew looked back at the vast expanse of space behind them. They had gone out as explorers, faced challenges as a team, and were returning as partners in a galactic community. The message they had sent out what felt like ages ago, "We're ready and waiting," had been more true than they could have imagined. Humanity was ready, not just to face aliens, but to stand alongside them and shape the future of the galaxy. Prometheus entered Earth's orbit to a hero's welcome. Cheers erupted from every corner of the planet as the spaceship came into view. The crew had returned, not just victorious, but as ambassadors of a new galactic age. As Prometheus docked with the International Space Station, Dr. Aria Chen looked down at the blue planet below. "It looks different now," she said softly. Commander Sarah Johnson nodded. "Everything's different now." The moment the crew stepped onto Earth, they were mobbed by reporters and well-wishers. People wanted to know everything about the aliens, the trials, and humanity's new place in the galaxy. In the weeks that followed, the world changed rapidly. Schools started teaching alien languages. Scientists began working on new technologies based on what they'd learned from the Zarkonians. World leaders met to discuss how Earth would be represented in galactic politics. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Some people were scared of the changes. Others worried about losing Earth's culture in the vast galaxy. Protests broke out in some cities, with signs reading "Earth First" and "Keep the Aliens Out." Dr. Chen found herself at the center of it all. She traveled the world, explaining what had happened and what it meant for humanity's future. "We're not losing who we are," she told the packed auditorium in Mumbai. "We're growing. We're becoming more than we were, but we're still us." Slowly, the excitement began to outweigh the fear. People started to see the possibilities that lay ahead. New jobs were created. New fields of study opened up. The economy boomed as Earth prepared to trade with alien worlds. 6 months after Prometheus's return, the first alien delegation arrived on Earth. They landed in a field outside New York City, their ship gleaming in the sunlight. As the aliens stepped out, the world held its breath. But instead of fear, most people felt a sense of wonder. The aliens looked strange, yes, but also somehow familiar. They had come in peace, just as humanity had hoped. The alien leader, flanked by human diplomats, addressed the world. "We come as friends and partners," they said, their words translated into every human language. "Together, we will build a brighter future for all." That night, celebrations erupted around the world. In Paris, the Eiffel Tower was lit up in colors never seen on Earth before. In Rio de Janeiro, aliens joined the carnival parade. In Tokyo, chefs prepared dishes that mixed Earth and alien cuisines. But even as the world celebrated, Dr. Chen and her team were hard at work. They had been given a new mission: to prepare humanity for its next great leap. "We've been invited to establish a human colony on a planet in the Andromeda Galaxy," Dr. Chen announced to a stunned press conference. "It's over 2 million light-years away, but with Zarkonian technology, we can get there in just a few years." The news sent shockwaves through the world. A human colony in another galaxy. It seemed impossible. But then again, so had meeting aliens just a year ago. As preparations for the mission began, Dr. Chen found a quiet moment to herself. She stood on the roof of her research center, looking up at the stars. "We did it," she whispered to herself. "We're not just ready and waiting anymore. We're out there, among the stars." Commander Johnson joined her. "Thinking about the colony?" she asked. Dr. Chen nodded. "It's a big step." "The biggest," Johnson agreed. "But if anyone can do it, it's us. Humans, I mean." They stood in silence for a moment, contemplating the vastness of space and the journey ahead. "You know," Dr. Chen said finally, "when we sent that message, 'We're ready and waiting,' I don't think we really knew what we were ready for." Johnson laughed. "Maybe not, but we were ready anyway. That's what makes us human." As they turned to go back inside, to continue planning humanity's next great adventure, a shooting star streaked across the sky. Once, people might have made a wish on it. Now they knew it might be a ship, carrying new friends, new knowledge, new possibilities. The universe had opened up to humanity. And humanity, with its creativity, its determination, and its unquenchable spirit of adventure, was ready to embrace it all. The message that had started it all, "We're ready and waiting," had become more than a warning. It had become a promise that humanity was ready for whatever the universe might bring, waiting to make its mark among the stars. And as the first ships prepared to leave for the Andromeda Galaxy, carrying the hopes and dreams of an entire planet, that promise echoed across the cosmos. Humanity was ready, and the greatest adventure was just beginning.